Hey, welcome to the Bold Truth Leadership Podcast, the place where you get the straightforward, no nonsense, no holds barred ideas on leadership and growth, both personally and professionally. The Bold Truth is brought to you by the Peak Performance Group. I'm your host, Coach Rick Colster, certified executive business coach and chief coaching officer for the Peak Performance Group, where we help people and organizations align and maximize their potential. Our guest today, and I wrote this in capital letters, folks. Our guest today is not only an expert in leadership, I believe he embodies the term servant leader. We talk about servant leadership here at the Peak Performance Group and the Bold Truth Podcast. Today, we're talking to a man who has worn and wears many, many, many hats. Where do I begin? Division I football, captain of the team, Navy SEAL officer, founder of one of the finest and one of the largest military give-back charities in the country, Carry the Load. Entrepreneur, professional speaker, as well as the founder of the Trident Response Group. It's a global security and personal safety company that helps individuals and organizations stay prepared and plan for unforeseen risks. Man, and there's more, and I'm going to let him jump in to tell you all about what he's got going on, because this guy, I don't know where he gets his gas, but it's good gas. It's 106 octane.
I've functionalized my ADD is all it is. I've found a way to use it.
There you go. Welcome, my friend Clint Bruce, to the Bald Truth. Welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a long time trying to set this up, so I'm excited we were finally able to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So Baldcrest has allowed me to meet and with so many really interesting people. But I got to tell you, man, you're pretty high up on the list of interesting people for me. You've done so much, from playing ball to coming out, serving our country, now coming out an entrepreneur. And I know you give back, and you give back to veterans, athletes. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there and what your mindset is there. I'm going to jump right in, like diving deep into the pool.
I feel very fortunate. I was talking to someone the other day, and they were asking me about this kind of life that I've had. And I said, it's really more Forrest Gumpian than it is anything else. I just kind of put my head down and try hard wherever I'm at. And that typically earns audience with really amazing people that I then try to keep up with. Right. And then for me to never really forget who helped me get where I am, and never forget what it was like to be that person trying to get somewhere. And so for me, the whole concept of giving back, I almost don't look at it as giving back. I look at it as a function. Like it's that's what you do. It's an expectation, right? And so for me, it never has really felt like effort. It's really felt like more of an expectation, like going back to the huddle, figuring out what play you're going to call next, right? But I've been very fortunate, having had the opportunity to pursue things that I dreamed about as a young guy, and then having people in my life who just kind of bought into this belief that I could maybe do it, and then stayed alongside me as I try to do these things and try to be worth that. One of the things I tell people is, like, when you've lost a lot of your friends and your loved ones, the worst thing you could ever do is waste time that they no longer have. And so time and tide wait for no man or woman, and we have to use our time. So that's really all I'm ever trying to do, is prove myself worth time that I'm not completely sure I warrant. But it's my day, so I'm going to use it to be a return on investment as much as possible.
That makes sense. And what a great philosophy and way to live.
Yeah.
I mean, folks, we have a couple of mutual friends, and every one of them speaks incredibly highly of it. He's probably one of those most giving guys you'll ever meet. And what I know of you and getting to know you, you're one of those guys who just gives without caring. And how's that come about?
Well, I think I've always had it modeled for me. Like, again, for me, it doesn't seem that really extraordinary. I have this kind of real simple life theory called chase, pace, and pull. So most of life comes down to really measuring who you're chasing, and really honestly telling yourself what your life's going to look like if you catch them. And then, so if you chase the right people, and then pace is you keep pace with the right people. Are you running with people who mean what they say as much as you mean what you say? Are you running with people who are willing to work as hard as you're willing to work? And like, for me, it's all about words, work, and wins. Like, hey, you got to put your words to work to win. And the reality is that serendipity has probably more to do with success than most people think, but you got to put your words to work, right? Are you keeping peace with people who put their words to work? And then pull. So you have chase, you have pace, and then pull is you got to be pulling someone behind you. Because if you don't, then you're going to be doing this thing for longer than you want to or longer than you're good at it. And both of those are a disservice to the thing, whatever it is. And also, if you're really honest with yourself, you recognize that you've been pulled to where you are by others as well. So that kind of chase, pace, and pull has been pretty influential in my life since early high school. And in the process of chasing the right people, I've watched them serve, and so for me, it's just kind of what you do, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you seem to be I call it a serial entrepreneur, and if I can say that, and you keep pretty busy. We had a little,
Yeah.
chatting before we got on. We started this, and you keep them pretty busy with what you've got. So you've got how many different things that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so it does sound chaotic until you kind of look at the transcendent deal. Like, so for me, I very simply, I work for and with the best leaders in America and try to create amazing careers for veterans and athletes as they transition, so we can win the war on veteran suicide with the power of daily wins and a good day's work. So all these companies are really just positions on the field, right? And so football looks chaotic until you see the 11 people wearing the same helmet, and they just have different functions and different roles in pursuit of that thing. So for me, all these brands are just other positions on a field, right? And so TRG is the linebacker, and I look at the hard skills, soft skills, and experiences of veterans and athletes as they transition, and distill the most valued skills and abilities into kind of a product line and just go. And so it's like being a multi-tool athlete, but putting some discipline on top of it, because that makes it easier to consume.
Okay.
So kind of channelizing the hard skills, soft skills, and experiences, and offering those in aim small, miss small value propositions to the kind of leaders, the generals and admirals of the private sector that I want to be around and learn from. And for me, a lot of these businesses in many ways are their capture strategies, in that I always kind of knew who I wanted to play for and players I wanted to be around. In transition, I tell guys often, transition is like being told you can't play football anymore, but you can still be an athlete. So you look to the sport that most interests you, or the one that you think your skills export to most quickly, and you find the coach you want to play for, and you just get on the field. And you earn your way onto the field until you figure out that sport, and then you earn your way into a starting position. And the meritocracy of sports I think applies very clearly to business. So I just kind of sit back and listen to what people ask me to do, and I go, hey, can I do that? Can I do it so well that they ask me to do it again, or ask me what else I do? Do other people need it? Do I know someone that can do it better than me? And if I can answer yes those questions, we just go.
Yeah, and I get that, because I kind of paralleled a little bit to I played a little college ball. It wasn't great. I was never going to play in the NFL because I wasn't that good, but I played a little bit, small school. And once I realized that I wasn't going to get much bigger than I was, and I was outpaced, and the next level for me,
right,
I went, I maybe need to switch sports here. And I did.
Yeah.
I switched from football to lacrosse.
See, and that's exactly the thing. Is like, hey, where do I export? What if I stop playing football on Tuesday and start playing another sport on Wednesday? What sport do my current skills, abilities, and interests translate to most effectively? Right. And then how do I get on the field and learn from that sport? And then how do I just keep doing that over and over again until I run out of time? And
that's the thing with business too, I think, is how do you transition those skills? And we could have a long conversation, and I'll tell you my story, but this is about you today. But it's really, you take those skills, and, I started this company, Peak Performance Group, 17 years ago, after running sales for a publicly traded company.
Wow.
And I took the skills that I had there, and I love that.
You
take those
skills, right?
training,
and that's what I do. Like, so I fundamentally have this philosophy called readyology, right? Which is kind of the study and pursuit of readiness on the ball field, battlefield, boardroom, and breakfast table. And so for me, these are the four maps that matter most to a man like me. The ball field is my physicality, my ability to, physically take care of myself and others. The battlefield is being able to protect myself and those I care about. The boardroom is my professional endeavors, and the breakfast table is my family. And so for me, rising tides raise all boats. And so it's about pursuing readiness and then distributing what I've learned about readiness to other leaders for their own applications on their ball field, their battlefield, their boardroom, and their breakfast table. And so for me, those are kind of natural channels. when you see guys exiting out of the special operations community, there's a natural channeling into helping the leaders be ready to protect themselves and each other. I mean, these are the immediate hard skills, right?
Okay.
But what a lot of people don't know, and I think a lot of the transitioning veterans don't necessarily fully understand, is they're subject matter experts on the concept of mental resilience and mental toughness and mental performance. And this is a highly valued, exportable skill that is industry agnostic. And so you come out of, for instance, I got two great friends that are transitioning out of a tier 1 special operations unit that doesn't exist, but Chuck Norris made like 5 movies about them in the 80s. And I like, hey, you're one of the best in the world at managing people problems, because that's what the senior enlisted do. The senior enlisted the senior enlisted are explicitly tasked with creating the next generation of great combat leader and support, advising, guiding current leadership. I mean, they are masters at people. And when you look at the industry for hard skills, warfare, all this other stuff, and you look at the industry for motivation, self-improvement, I mean, it now you have 2 things that you can pour into, right? And so it's fun to watch guys realize, and gals realize, how ready they are to be as successful in the private sector, on the boardroom, as they were on the battlefield or the ball field, depending on what they're transitioning from, right? At the end of the day, those are the 4 maps I lived on: ball field, battlefield, boardroom, and breakfast table.
I love that.
As I've gotten older, I've had to learn how to take what I learned from the ball field and the boardroom and breakfast table, and battlefield from the boardroom and the breakfast table. And I'm unwilling to have boardroom success at the expense of a happy breakfast table. And I'm very, very fortunate to have worked for really remarkable business leaders at the most senior levels of leadership, and watch them both lead their organizations and then build, lead, and love a family that matters to others. And so I'm really a byproduct of who I'm chasing.
See, and that's perfect, because as an executive coach, one of the things we focus on is, because as business owners and leaders, entrepreneurs, it's been a focus on the business, and let me focus on the business. Let me focus on getting the job done, doing this, and you forget about the family. It's that life balance. We call life balance. Yeah. I really think it's a rhythm. It's more rhythm than balance, because I don't know how long I can stand on one leg.
I describe balance as balance is not an equal distribution of effort. Balance is having high ground for hard days, right? And it's pre-investing in those people, places, and things that you need to be there when you need them. And the reality is you're not going to know when you're going to need them. So it's got to be a discipline. It's got to be a mentality to pre-invest in those things, so they're there. And high ground gives you perspectives on problems, right? And so for me, resilience is a discipline. Recognizing that you need it and building those processes that produce resilience is a really big deal.
So, okay, so that raises a question for me, or something, just to bring in a conversation, is mindset.
Sure.
I'm giving a speech for a group at the end of the month, and I'm doing it on mindset. So I looked around. I said, one of your peers, David Goggins, read his book.
Yeah.
And you probably know him. I just listened to him.
David and I used to work out together at 5. He's a great guy and a great friend. And you want to talk about a dude with a mindset? I mean,
that's it. Mindset.
It is a compass fixed on a particular direction, and if magnetic north shifts, it doesn't matter. He's still going his north, right? And I've always loved that about him.
Yeah, and so I went out, and I've got a relationship with a young Green Beret, 27-year-old, fresh out of West Pointer. Yeah. And so I called him up. I said, tell me what got you through Ranger School, what got you through the Q course and all that from a mindset perspective. And he mapped out what it took. He said it was that, what's that next step? I didn't worry about finishing 9 weeks away. I worried about, what's my next 10 minutes? What's my next hour?
100%. And for me, you have both strategic and tactical mindset. So strategic mindset, I call kind of the high why, right? And your strategic mindset is like, hey, I want to be a Navy SEAL. And your tactical mindset is, during Hell Week, I want to be a Navy SEAL, and I'm going to make it to midnight. And then I'm going to make it to 6 a.m. Because if you're thinking about Friday on Sunday when Hell Week, you're probably not going to make it. It's too much, right? But if you think about the next meal, the next thing you know, you do that. You do that for 5 days and you're done, right? So you got to have the strategic. Go ahead.
Let's look at this and go, okay, now let's take this into the business world.
Sure.
Because a lot of people look at those, I call them BHAGs, big, hairy, or
Hmm.
audacious goals. And they go,
Yeah.
oh, man, that's awful big, man. I don't know. Instead, how do we take this, that look for the next meal,
Hmm.
or what's that next 10 minutes? Let me get through the next hour.
Hmm.
How do we transition that? What would you say for leaders in the business world to transition that when they become
Yeah.
overwhelmed, when their investors are knocking on the door, when the crap hits the fan, that kind of
Yeah.
thing?
So one thing I'd say is, one, you got to expect all those things to happen, right?
Yeah,
So for me,
sure.
the absence of adversity makes me nervous, because the absence of adversity means I'm missing something, or I'm not trying hard enough, right? So if you wade into big audacious endeavors without an anticipation of adversity, then you're not really preparing yourself. So one, you kind of expect it to happen, and this is where I think the urgency that the ball field and the battlefield gives six sports well into it. So I said this earlier, I want to win the war on veteran suicide with the power of daily wins and a good day's work, right? So we know that 22 veterans commit suicide daily. The number is candidly higher. And so now that it's numbers, I know what to do about it. And so, people ask me, hey, what can one person do? I'm like, 1%. So 1% of 22 times 365 rounded up is about 81. So my goal is to create 81 successful transitions from the battlefield to the boardroom and the breakfast table, right? And so everything else is subordinate to that, and I'm never necessarily out of that fight, right? And so what that allows me to do is process failure, setbacks, and adversity um, appropriately, right? And I can reconcile this summit, like, hey, listen, was this the best way to get to the summit? Yes or no? But that's not the summit. The thing
Okay.
that just failed, like that's not the end state. That's the iteration, right? And so for me, it's about iterations and end states. And when you have a very clearly defined end state, then you can see iterations towards that end state as iterations, right? And that's why we practice. That's why Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are about practice, and Saturday is about playing, right? And so we're trying to iterate failure out of our system, so we only make new mistakes during the games, right?
Okay.
And so for me, that's where that mindset really kicks in. And mindset isn't this. It's too often confused, I think, as this kind of really fluffy, non-quantifiable. The more quantifiable we can make something, whether it's realistic or not, the more our brains kind of grab onto it. I was just having this conversation with my daughters the other day. Like, there's three players on the stage when you're encountering adversity. There's the body, the brain, and the mind, right?
Hmm.
And this is where I think talent is an affliction at some point in time, because what talent can do is it can kick that moment to where you're over your skis so far down the road that you're not it's foreign to you. And I was telling, when I was in the NFL, there are guys in the NFL, was the very first time they've been surrounded by someone who was better than them, and they didn't know how to take it. And that's not a character issue, it's an exposure issue.
Okay.
Literally, the amygdala, the body and the brain are like, hold on, what is this, right? And we everybody has that moment. It's just a question of when you have that moment. And so for me, adversity is like open mic night at the Roadhouse that Patrick Swayze worked in, right?
Yeah.
And if you haven't been exposed to adversity, then the body and the brain, they're going to grab the mic and they're going to be like, hey, we're out of here. We're about to die. If you're getting surf tortured, you're like, I'm about to drown. And your brain's like, we're going to get hypothermia. And you got to have a mind that goes, relax. They get in trouble if we die. Thousands of guys have done this before us. And the guy that's smaller than you is being tougher than you right now. So suck it up, right? And so we have this kind of constant inner dialogue in our heads, and we have to understand the physiology of overcoming adversity, and
Okay.
that's why I think being measurable is helpful. Like, for me, when I first transitioned, my transition was pretty brutal, but I've become so reliant on positive self-talk because I wasn't a very gifted athlete. I mean, my football story is not what most people would think it would be. In eighth grade, I was the fifth string fullback, and there were only three other fullbacks, like skipping a whole position on the depth chart when they put me in. And
You did the math.
oh yeah, and I had to decide very early why I was playing the game. Was I playing the game because I love these guys, I love the game, and I wanted to be a great teammate, or was I playing the game because I wanted to be a starter and be? And I just said, listen, I love being an athlete, I love being with these guys, and I want to be a great teammate, right? And then in ninth grade, I was still so bad that my coach told me to stop wasting his and my time and go to theater. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to theater because there's cute girls there. I'm going to still play football just to make you mad. And then what happened is I ended up being probably one of the most accomplished scout team players in the Garland Independent School District. And scout team doesn't rotate, right? So you're getting all these snaps over 2 years at all these different positions. And then my junior year, halfway through the season, we were up by a lot. And another guy got hurt, and they put me in. And all of a sudden, those repetitions translated to this thing called instinct, right? Which is intuition for the game. And so for me, it was, reps. It was an opportunity to say, like, hey, if I get this many reps doing this many things, that's going to translate to an output that's going to produce this, right? And your math doesn't have to be right. You just got to have some math, right? And so for me, mindset is about, it doesn't even have to be a realistic goal. It can be a goal that's within the realm of reason. And then if you put out and surround yourself with people and chasing people that are there or heading there too, you'll probably get further than you thought you could on your own.
Well, I love that. So wait a minute, I'm also now listening. You went from fullback to middle linebacker.
Oh yeah. My dad told me, Clint, if you don't have the athletic ability to score touchdowns, hate those who do. And I said, well, who does that? He goes, linebackers. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play linebacker then, right? least talent, most aggression. And I just, I grew up watching Dick Buckus films and man, that's just for me, it was the opportunity to just unleash hate on those who said they wanted something more than the guys I played with wanted something. And so I just love that. I love I mean, this sounds weird, but I love the violence and the pain and the sacrifice. And, you can't talk your way to a championship. Like you got to be willing to sweat and bleed and lead in order to do it. You got to be someone worth chasing. And for me, I don't think anything's really changed.
So you're talking to an old offensive lineman now.
Yeah.
I was a tackle and center. So we would have gone head up.
You know what's really interesting, and I tell this all the time. I tell people, like, centers, in my experience, centers often become the best coaches and the best tacticians because their view is so small that they have to visualize everything else. Mm-hmm. And so they have this brain, the myelination, the network thing, that the neuro linkage that happens when you have to visualize. You're creating capacity there. So the centers have this amazing ability to visualize reality around themselves without having to see it and be fairly accurate with it. So you think about how many snaps you made as a center and your knowledge of the game and how that's exported into other things, how you can create this visual map and navigate.
Now that I think about that, you say that, one of mine, centers have to make the line calls.
That's right.
We're looking, we're checking, looking at everything, seeing what's going on. We're making a line call. So we have to know not only what the plays are, what the other players are doing. We have all 10
other players, not just the all 10 other players. Like, you have to have a grasp.
Oh yeah.
Hey, is this a pass run? If it's a pass, is it right, left? And then you got to anticipate. You're making your calls based on what the other side's doing. So the feeds, the capacity for center intake information, reconcile that against defined goals and objectives, and make adjustments accordingly. I mean, from a brain science perspective, you've made these what are game trails in most people's brain, like from bike path to 2-lane to 4-lane to 5-lane interstates.
And that's interesting because a lot of people really focus on what they do. I'm an accountant in the business world. I'm an accountant. I'm in sales. I'm here. I'm in manufacturing. I'm in distribution. I'm in customer service. And everybody's got this laser focus on that. And one of the things I found, and maybe this is why I was pretty good at center, other than the quarterback was my roommate. So we became pretty close.
Yeah. Well,
that's a bad joke, by the way.
Yeah. You have to.
And, but now as a business coach, I can look at a business and understand the business, regardless of the industry, from a 10,000-foot view. And I never realized what it was. And I was an entrepreneur at age 22. I bought a bar at age 22. Go figure. That was no fun.
Yeah. Hey, listen, but if you can make it in a bar, you can make it in a restaurant. Like bars and restaurants, those, you want to talk about real-time inventory management. Just like silent math the whole time. I mean, you export bar success or restaurant success, you can take that virtually anywhere else because you do all the timeline.
That's what I'm thinking I'm able to do now as a business coach. I can go into a business and look at their business, give me a couple hours, get to feel how you're doing, what your people are doing, watch your operations. I can go, okay, I don't know how you actually do what you do per se, but I can tell you, here's some of here's some of the bottlenecks. Here's some
Right.
of the changes you need to make real
Right.
quickly, and understand the business in general. It's been,
Right.
I guess, the blessing for my business over the last
Sure.
17 years, being
100%.
able to
Yeah.
do that. I never thought of that from a football perspective, but that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. The
Because
players
now,
that have the least kind of, I mean, you think about it, your view is this. And so you got to visualize everything else. And physiologically, you're pre-routing this really fast uptake, decision making, and output to people. And then one of the things is like 80% of every business is the same, right?
yeah,
And
you
so the
are.
faster you can hyper focus on a 20, and that's why I tell people that this is one of the transition challenges sometimes is the more elite you compete at or operate at, and often the more subsidized you are. So you're put in a position where 80%, so 80% of every problem is the same, but that 80% is done by somebody else, which then allows you to point 100% of you at the 20% that's impossible. And that's pretty advantageous math, right? And so you transition out, not necessarily you're great at the extraordinary and bad at the everyday. And that kind of makes you feel dumb and weak. And we have to recalculate. We have to restructure our brains, right? The way I describe it sometimes is on the ball field, on the battlefield, you're pinging. It's like sonar, and that response tells you who you are, your value to the organization, how you get better, right? And you know the language. And then the private sector does not ping back nearly as fast as ball and battle,
Oh, no.
right? So you're just pinging. And another analogy I use is, being an athlete and an operator is like flying map of the earth. Then all of a sudden you fly into a fog bank, but you don't have this artificial horizon anymore. So we have to create this artificial horizon that tells us who we are, where we are, and our value to others, right? And I had to create a language for myself because it didn't really exist. I'd never had to wait longer than a month to figure out my value proposition to those around me, right? So I created this kind of system called the C4. The way I describe it, there's a difference between being here and home, right? Here is geography. Home is knowing why you're here.
Mm-hmm.
That's harder. That's where your people, your passion, and your purpose line up. And I'm a really visual guy. So I said, hey, my friends and my family, the people I care about most, I'm here, but I'm not home. And they're on the other side of that door. And I got to get through that door because my girls deserve a daddy who's home. My bride deserves a husband who's home. So how do I get through that door? Well, in my world, you blow it up. C4 is amazing. You can cook with it. It's fantastic. But C4 became a little bit of an acrostic, and it stood for career, compete, contribute, and have a catalyst. And what I did is career, compete, contribute, and have a catalyst. And so that was my daily checklist. And it was, hey, did I do my job? Did I compete in something or prepare to compete in something? Did I help someone? And did I get better? And then on top of that, I kind of made it binary, is ones and zeros. Because if I give myself a letter grade, I'll either be too generous or too critical. So did I or didn't I do it, right? And I had to look at that at the end every day and go, hey, did I show up? Yeah, I showed up, right? Did I compete or train or something? And I was just trying to get ones, right? And because my brain craves feedback. And so without knowing the language of the world I was in, everything hates a vacuum. So if I let a vacuum persist, then I was telling my daughter this the other day. I was like, hey, everybody's got an inside voice, an internal voice. And what your dad has learned after 46 years is my internal voice is an a-hole. And if I let that guy talk, he's not going to say stuff that's really productive and helpful. So it's the open mic. Like I got to own open mic night, and I got to talk to myself in a way that I want to see myself. So I had to create this language so I could have this instrument panel that could keep me from auguring in when I was in this, fog bank called transition. So literally at the end of every day, I'd go, hey, did I do my job? And listen, you wouldn't make a movie about 80% of what I did in the SEAL teams. You're like, oh, there's Lieutenant Bruce changing the printer paper. Like but you got to show up. Show up is the beginning of all good workouts, right? And like going to the gym is the beginning of all good workouts. And then competing, I had to find my physicality, and I had to tune it back into what is the game of my life now. And then I think we're wired for service to others. I think there's a hole in our soul that can really only be filled by taking care of others. And that was kind of the genesis of Carry the Load in a lot of ways for me.
Okay.
and then you got to get better, right? Or you're going to get left behind. And so what I would find is, and I still got them, I'd look down and, I'd have these 3 1 days. I'd do my job. I'd work out a little bit. I'd help somebody and, and so I could ping and figure out where I was, what I was doing, and my value to myself and others. Right. And it's okay to recreate. It's okay to create a language for yourself while you're learning the language of the land you're in right now.
Yeah. It sounds like values, your value system drives a lot of what your decision process and your actions are.
Oh yeah. I mean, your value system, listen, biologically, you got to live with yourself for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And the value system determines how that feels, right? How does it feel to be you? Right. And so for me, I'm imperfect and I've made so many mistakes. But I've always been trying to do the right thing. So sometimes I've tried to do the right thing the wrong way. And then I own and I reconcile that and I learn from it. And that's just called being life. But yeah, I mean, I think and that's part of the pool, like chase, base, and pool. Like, the values you try to live by imperfectly are the values you're imprinting on someone who's chasing you. My whole deal, I tell guys, hey man, be chaseable. Be chaseable because someone's chasing you. And if they catch you, what is their life going to look like, right? And so, and especially when you're transitioning, like I have fellowships here. And the reason I have fellowships is a lot of us question ourselves when we transition, but when we're sitting in a seat that is stewarding the name of someone we lost and the branch that I served in, you tend to take yourself more serious. It's not about you anymore. Like, hey, if it were just me, maybe I'd make some decisions that weren't great for me, but I'm not going to disappoint the Marine Corps or Doug Zimbeck. And I'm not going to dishonor, these amazing friends that I've lost in the units they served in. Right.
Yeah. So, and that's it. One of the things that when I work with clients and I work with my young leaders is really instill the importance of having personal values, core values that drive the decisions, that drive how you live your life. And it's really interesting. And of course, I love it watching you and hearing you talk about it. You've done that. And most people don't.
Well, I've had it modeled for me too, though. Like, I don't know how to not do it. So I can't claim authorship from it necessarily. What I will claim authorship of is I typically choose good people to chase. And because I choose good people to chase, I don't know another way. So it's not like I've had this remarkable resilience gene. It's just I don't know how to not do it that way because I had a dad who did it this way until he died. And I had these. So for me, it's just kind of what I know.
Okay. So just to keep things going, I want to be conscious of your time as always, because, I know you're busy as that. You've got another piece of your portfolio, Hold Fast.
Yeah.
That I find very interesting, of course, Speakers Bureau, but with a twist. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for me, again, I said earlier, you look at the hard skills, soft skills, and experiences of veterans and athletes as they transition. And so like when I talk about this concept called radiology, the way I love helping leaders feel ready to protect, perform, compete, and recover. And Hold Fast is really the performance piece. And I'd tell you, there's two ways to look at it. The final frontier of human performance is from the neck up, but the genesis of all performance is from the neck up. So if you can figure out mindset and you can figure out positive self-talk and you can figure out visualization, you can figure out all these other things, it can shape your output on any other front. And this is what's so exciting for me is most people that are exiting military service, certainly in the special operations community, they're subject matter experts on mental toughness. In other words, you just don't make it if you don't have it. And so what's fun about that is you can create business models for them that allow them to live where they want to live, yet provision for themselves and their family. If all they do is export those lessons that they taught themselves and others to make it through the next mission, make it through the next deployment. And these are industry agnostic resources and materials. Like you can, it's interesting. I'm about to visit with an e-gaming team, right, for a local pretty regarded university here. But the fundamentals of performance are the same, whether it's an e-game or a real mission. The brain, and this is where you kind of begin to hack the brain a little bit. The amygdala doesn't discern stimulus. It's just sees stimulus, right? And when you see that, then you can recognize how you can shape yourself to endure hard seasons and acclimate yourself to stress and performance under stress. And that's so much more of a scalable value proposition to others. And it's really cool to watch. I I look at these exiting senior leaders, you know, they're in their late 40s, early 50s. And for the last 20 some years, all they've done is, you know, protect the nation in no-fail environments and austere conditions. And you go, hey, listen, you are a Harvard grad of mental toughness and mental resilience. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, I know a lot of Harvard grads that want to learn mental toughness, mental resilience from you. So you are shovel ready to provision for yourself and your family, you know? And it's fun giving guys like for me, it's kind of like my Chick-fil-A. It's like, here, go be great. You already know how to do this. Here's a framework. And it's really neat to watch men and women realize their continued value proposition to leaders that they want to chase on the map that they're on now.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, the bald truth was all about leadership. And the Peak Performance Group are all about creating young leaders and new leaders and really maximizing leadership within what we do. So the questionnaire on this, and then I've got three questions I've got to ask you that are just the bald truth questions. But on leadership, what would you say the top two things that a leader needs to have to be successful?
Well, I think you got to have
two.
Yeah, you got to have clarity. You got to know where you're leading people to, and you got to have. Give me three. You got to have clarity, curiosity, and communication. You got to have clarity. Here's where we're going. You got to have the ability to communicate to other people, and you got to have a relentless curiosity about yourself and others in order to constantly refresh that way that you're going to get there. For me, curiosity. I get asked this all the time. I'll tell you that curiosity is ever present and when you're around elites, right? Because for me, curiosity is intellectual courage and is the co-equal and precursor to physical courage. And I'm not diminishing physical courage when I say that. I'm just being honest. The truth about physical courage is you're brave because you had to be. And what elevates curiosity to the train of courage is this: all you have to do is not do this, and no one's going to know that you didn't know, right?
Yeah.
So for me, if we ask her, hey, why don't I ask questions? Well, it's because I'm afraid of what they think when they'll find out I don't know, or I'm afraid of the answer. So this is an external representation of the presence of courage, and you got to have courage to do hard stuff. So when I see curiosity, I know I'm in the presence of courage. And I can do a lot with courage, right? This person knows that the destination doesn't matter as much as the distractions, right? And curiosity and courage are, you know, they're synonymous to me in a lot of ways. So a leader has to have clarity. Hey, here's where we're going. You got to have communication. You got to be able to style flex to who you're talking to. I had a really great leader, and he gave this amazing presentation. He was one of the most gifted orators I've ever been around. And he could read this out of a cereal box, and we were ready to run through a wall for him. And then he went and he gave the same kind of presentation to a different kind of demographic. And he kind of tailored it to them. And it wasn't disingenuous at all. He hadn't become somebody else. And I was driving him because I was a younger ranking guy. And I said, hey, sir, how'd you do that? Like, how'd you become that room? And he just kind of looked at me like it was the dumbest question. He goes, I never thought it was everybody else's responsibility to learn to listen the way the leader liked to talk. And I was like, oh, man. And when you know what you're going to say, you can style flex it to the audience, right? And then you got to have that curiosity. Because as a leader, curiosity, for me, curiosity is so important because it's a creator, a catalyst, and a complacency killer. And curiosity is going to create something that you're proud of. It's a catalyst. It'll make you better at it faster than other things. And finally, it's a complacency killer. And leaders, you know, leaders sometimes have the perceived luxury of complacency, but boy, complacency is in the supply chain of every catastrophe that exists. So when we're curious as leaders, a few things happen. One, we extend our seasons of high performance, but two, we attract people that want to create something they're proud of and want to get as good as they can be as fast as they can be. And man, that's just a good day of work, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the curiosity keeps us on edge because we're
100%.
keeping asking that question
100%.
and it keeps us away from complacency. I love that. I'm actually going to steal that and use that. So, all right. Anything you want to promote?
For it, man.
Thanks. Anything you want to promote?
No, yeah. Here's what I'll tell you. Yeah. So we built an app called the Hold Fast Harbor app. And if you text the word undone, UNDONE, to the number 555-888, it'll bring you onto it. And it's basically just kind of like a living library of some of these lessons learned and mindset. And like I'll post this this podcast on it. It's just a reservoir of lessons learned that you can use as you lead others in your own life. And it's been a lot of fun to do that. I think anybody that's involved in speaking has had to kind of change how they're doing things.
Sure. Absolutely.
And that's one of the ways we've done things. And yeah, that's it, man. I'm excited to be on this with you, and excited to have you come down here. I'd love for you to come down here someday.
I'm looking forward to
some
it.
of the guys and
Yeah.
gals. And
we're going to look before. Folks, if you look below and you're looking at it on video, just look on the bottom. You'll have how to sign up for the app right there. And I'm just excited here. So here we go. Before I leave, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you what I call Coach Rick's bald truth questions now.
Got it. Go for it.
All right. You ready? You holding on? Here we go.
There's no math here. It's not math, is it?
No math.
Okay.
No
good.
math.
Good.
All right. Good. Math is hard.
Yes.
So you're holding a dinner party for 5. You're in it, so 6 people total. But you're holding a dinner party. You get to invite 5 people. It could be anybody in all of history, alive or dead.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you invite and why?
So Jesus Christ, because that's who I'm chasing. My dad, because that's who I miss and who I was chasing while I had him. Dick Buckus, and he's alive right now, so that should be pretty easy. Woodrow Call from Lonesome Dove. And, I didn't enjoy talking to Alexander the Great just to figure out what that was really like.
Okay.
And going, hey, man, if you could do it all again, what would you do differently, right? But if you ask me tomorrow, 3 of those names will change. 2 will always be the same. Jesus Christ.
Okay, good.
Father.
All right.
Articles
being written about you
on Thursday.
There you go. I'll let me know. The article's being written about you after you're gone. We all have an expiration date. We all know what it is, but it is. What's the title? Not what's in the article, but what's the title of the article? Headline.
And a man his daughters, the kind of man his daughters wanted to marry one day.
Oh, I love it. I like that. Good.
I just want to be the kind of man my girls want to marry today. One day, purposeful, passionate, protective, and a provider. That's the article.
I love that. All right. What do you do each morning to set yourself up for success?
So I was pretty, for me, it's faith, fitness, family. And so in some iteration, get up, get in the word, do a little bit of a workout, whatever I can, mental or physical. And then I work really hard to spend some time with the girls before the day starts, take them to school, spend some time with them. And then I hit my focus. So it's faith, family, friends, faith, family, fitness, focus, friends, fun. And that's kind of the days. And I think we got to have fun at some point in time. But the morning it's always faith, family, and fitness.
I love it. 5 F's. Perfect. Good.
Alliteration. I'm a huge fan of alliteration.
My man, thank you for spending some time with us today.
Of course.
I appreciate it. Folks, you can look below. You'll see how to sign up for his new app. Just text the numbers. And I'm going to get over there. I promise you I'll be getting over to visit over at the TRG, Charter Response
at the Ready Lab. We call it the Ready Lab. And
the Ready Lab.
It's a place where leaders come to be ready to protect, perform, compete, and recover. And if you work here to transit.
That's good. I love to learn. I'm all about learning all the time. So, so is there a way to anyone get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of you? Website, number?
Yeah, if you go to thetrg.co, thetrg.co, you can go to holdfasthq.com. And then apparently, I didn't know this, but I have a social media. It's Clint Bruce HFST. My daughters told me that. Clint Bruce, Hotel Foxtrot Sierra Tango, Clint Bruce HFST.
All right,
and then LinkedIn. I probably understand LinkedIn better than anybody else, than anything else. So LinkedIn's a great way to get started.
It is good. And so all that stuff will be down below, folks. Look down in the bottom. You'll see that. And man, this has been fun. I had a blast talking with you, man.
Me too.
And I'm looking forward to it. Folks, you've been listening to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast with Coach Rick of the Peak Performance Group, the company that helps people and organizations reach their potential. If you're looking for a way to help your organization grow, whether sales, strategic direction, the Peak Performance Coaches, we can help you grow with our proven business acceleration system. So give us a call, 817-748-7425, or reach us on the World Wide Web at www.mypotentialplus.com, and we'll connect you with the right coach. Remember, subscribe and like below, folks. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube video, all of that. Clint's going to have it up on his app as well. This thing's going to be rocking and rolling. So hit like and subscribe to every episode. Folks, I'm Coach Rick, and that's the Bald Truth.